Martin Weiss, we broached this with Mark Stein, who's the longtime NBA reporter, when we just interviewed him last hour. And I'm just going to come out and say it. He said that actually a few weeks ago, there was scuttlebutt around the league about this possibly happening. He brought up that the Lakers a few years ago, when they were looking for a new coach, looked at Monty Williams, and he chose Phoenix over the Lakers, which he thought was a better situation, and he did get them to the NBA Finals, even though they lost to Milwaukee. I'm going to say it, Martin. The Lakers should should not rush into hiring JJ Redick, and if that's their guy, but they should strongly consider Monty Williams. Remember, not only has he been a good coach, I know it didn't work out in Detroit. I don't know who could have led that team to a good season in Detroit. Now, I'm not saying somebody might not have done a better job. It obviously was not a good fit, but Monty's been a good coach. He's been a coach of the year. Like I said, he led Phoenix to the NBA Finals, and they were up 2-0, and then it fell apart. But remember also, Martin, he coached Anthony Davis in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
He coached Davis his first 3 seasons, and Davis really was fond of him. They had a great relationship, and they didn't consult Davis before they fired Monty. And but he ended up, Alvin Gentry took over, and eventually Anthony Davis demanded his way out of New Orleans to go to LA. But he had a great relationship with Monty Williams. He talked about how, Monty cared about the players as people and men first, sure, and not just as ball players. So there's been a lot of talk that this Lakers hire will not be so much for LeBron, because obviously he's not the future. He's the near future. But at 40 years old, his days are numbered in terms of playing basketball. But for Anthony Davis, who you hope will one day take that torch from LeBron James and be able to keep them with the right moves in championship contention. And so I'm not saying you let a player make a decision, but do your due diligence. Chat with AD. See what, interview Monty. See if he's, if he would be a fit. If he wants the job, first of all, and secondly, would he be a fit? So I think they should look at Monty Williams and don't rush. Maybe JJ is your hire at the end of the day, but you're talking about a guy that's been a coach of the year, a guy that's taken the team to the NBA Finals, versus a guy with 0 head coaching experience. I think you do your due diligence and at least talk to him.
I mean, I would let Monty Williams go. And if I was Monty Williams, I'd be like, look, I'm about to get paid about $80 million over the next 6 years to not work.
5 years, $65 million left. I feel
5 years, $65 million.
Man, we all should have that job, right?
To work.
Chill.
Like, I think I'm going to go ahead and take myself to the beach, Chris, and put my feet up and count my money if I'm Monty Williams. But if I'm the Lakers at this point, you got to hire. Because here's the thing. All right, Chris. Frank Vogel's first press conference. The first question was, how did it feel to take this job knowing that you weren't the first choice? Already at JJ Redick's first press conference, if he is the head coach of the Lakers, that's going to be one of the first questions. Whatever happened with Dan Hurley? How does it know that you took this job knowing that you may not have been in the first choice? How did that feel?
But let me ask you this though: is that a tough question to answer when you have 0? You haven't even coached college or high school basketball, right? He coaches kids in junior high or something like that.
Sure, but nothing that matters on the high level. To me,
I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to interrupt your flow, but if somebody asked me that question, like if I was in JJ Redick's shoes, I'd be like, I understand. Even if I'm a little bit bothered,
right?
I would be like, this guy just won back-to-back national championships. I haven't coached at all. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be good. I will be good. And I'm looking at guys like Steve Kerr and Mark Jackson and Doc Rivers and others who had no coaching experience and did a good job. So I'm going to be good. I'm the coach of this team.
Right. But Chris,
I cannot be upset that they would look at a guy as accomplished as Dan Hurley. To me, it's a simple answer.
But
now,
that's
maybe
the answer if it's
it
only
was
Dan
Monty
Hurley, though,
Williams
Chris.
or somebody else.
That's what I'm saying. If you have Monty Williams, you bring him in there, then the question goes from not Dan Hurley, who's back-to-back national championship in college. You have Monty Williams, who's fresh off coaching the worst team in the NBA last year by a long shot.
Man, JJ Redick ain't in no position to be getting emotional and petty about something. You're lucky. The Lakers will consider you to coach LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You lucky, man. You better look, 3rd, 4th, 5th choice. You better count your blessings because you have no experience. None.
The thing, I do think you had a good point, though, in that they have to consult Anthony Davis for the coaching hire, right? I think it's a fool's endeavor to not consult Anthony Davis and LeBron, but more so Anthony Davis, because, again, he's going to be the guy who is the face of this franchise, that's leading this franchise going forward. We know LeBron is, at this point, probably taking it year to year, even if he doesn't announce that he's taking it year to year.
Right, he's going to sign long, 3 years.
But he's not going to be long for this league, right? Anthony Davis is going to be the guy that bridges your gap into the next era of the Lakers. It would almost be like hiring a new producer for the show without consulting you and Rob. It would be like, why would you do that? Right? Because it's like, these are the guys that they got to work with. So you might as well at least, does that mean you hiring and firing people? No, but they're taking your opinion into account. Monty Williams, and Mark Stein alluded to this as well when he was on at the bottom of last hour, was saying how Monty Williams had dealt with a lot of personal stuff recently. His wife passed away. He had a whole bunch of stuff going on outside of work, outside of his job. And I think it probably would do him well to collect himself, quote unquote, and get some of that stuff in order, right? Just take a little time off. Because you look at some of those press conferences he had after some of those Pistons games, and I know that not everybody was locked into the Pistons. Believe me, I understand why. But he looked beat down. He looked tired. He did not look like I mean, I get it. All they're doing is losing. But you look at a guy like Joe Mazzulla, for example. He's the same kind of guy. When they win and when they lose, you see it in his face. You see the way he answers his questions. Now, it's a little crazy to me the way he talks sometimes. He kind of looks a little bit out there. But Monty Williams looked defeated. And I think he's going to have to take some time to be able to gain his confidence back in a way. Because like you said, he was just in the NBA Finals a handful of years ago.
Here's the thing, though, and I hear you, and that very well may be what Monty wants to do. I feel you, man. If I have 5 years, $65 million coming to my way, I can't be mad. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, because the Lakers aren't going to pay him that much. Right? The Lakers are not. That's more than they offered to Dan Hurley. So they're not going to offer Monty that much. So you're right. Maybe that's what he'll do. Only thing I'll throw at you, though, is he was planning on coaching next year. In fact, he was planning on coaching for the next 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't know he was going to get fired.
But also, Chris, he was also planning on taking the year off before Tom Gores offered him the sun, the moon, and the stars to move to Detroit. Like there was, but he was waffling on the job until the money was like, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and take this job.
So, do you think a lot of it was as far as their failures? I mean, obviously he has to take some of the blame, but do you think he just really wasn't ready mentally and probably shouldn't have even been doing that?
That's kind of where I'm at. That's where I think he wasn't. There was so much, and I hate to. It's hard to speak on this because I don't know him personally. I'm not talking about it, but just as somebody who has experienced a lot of death in my life, right, and a lot of have various family members died throughout. It takes time to adjust to what your new normal is. Right, it takes time to adjust to finding out, I can't just pick up the phone and call. I can't just, it takes time to be able to grieve appropriately. And I don't think he got that time. And, I mean, he's got nobody to blame but himself because he didn't have to take the job. But when you dangle that much money in front of somebody, they're going to do things that they wouldn't normally do. right? They're not. I shouldn't say would normally do because like he's
well, his
obviously an
wife,
NBA
you
coach.
know, right? His wife, you know, his second wife. Remember, his first wife died in a tragic car accident. And then his second wife had cancer, but it was, you know, it went in remission. And so, I mean, now that's not as much of a factor. Although, to your point, maybe he still jumped in too early. But I look, my thing is more so on the Lakers. You know, it's not so much on Monty. I mean, my goodness, I wouldn't blame him if he never coached again. You know, I mean, he's still young enough where he could certainly do another job, and he probably doesn't want to end it the way it did in Detroit. But with all that money, he could go do whatever he wants. But I'm just saying, if I'm the Lakers and I'm about to hire a guy with absolutely no coaching experience, and there have been rumblings that Anthony Davis isn't that high on Redick. I don't know if that's true, but there's been rumblings about that, and that he wanted James Borrego, who he got to know in New Orleans.
Right.
So, you know, again, just do your due diligence. If Monty's like, you know what, I'm going to take a break. You guys will probably be looking for a new coach in 3 years anyway. I'll be ready by then. But no, if he wants to take a break, I'm totally with it and totally understand. But yeah, I mean, we will, you know, I just think that's something they should do. Now, do you think Redick should be the hire? I thought a guy that, you know, is just off the radar now. Mark Jackson would be good. Now I'm saying Monty. I think Sam Cassell should be a consideration.
That's where I'd be going. I'd be looking at Sam Cassell. Or I'd be looking at, honestly, Jeff Van Gundy, who was sitting on the...
Of course, you know, yeah, you're right. He just went with the Clippers now.
But he was sitting on the Celtics bench where, you know, I'm looking at an assistant, either an assistant coach or a guy who's been a former head coach. And I know that's not, I mean, shouldn't sound like a hot take, but apparently, you know, if you could go on TV and talk about the game, they think you can coach it as well. If you look at, you know, some of the history of broadcasters who have been picked up from the sideline, you know, from the sideline seat with the microphone on to the sideline seat standing up calling timeouts. Right. I think that JJ Redick at this point, the problem is, Chris, it's been reported ad nauseum about how close they are to a deal. So like for me, I would have never considered JJ Redick as a head coach. But it seems as if from all the reporting from the NBA insiders that we trust to put this type of stuff out there, that JJ Redick and the Lakers have been on third base this entire damn time.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's no doubt. No doubt.
So at this point, like I would entertain all types of names because I think almost all of them would be better options.
Right.